We've comments flying in straight away, and I suppose some of them relate to what happened in the game between Limerick and Galway, which was on TV yesterday on TG Cahir, and then it was, of course, covered last night in the Sunday game. Pat O'D says, there were 2 red card incidents in the Galway versus Limerick match, but RT and the media want to only talk about one. Maybe the media is not being honest. So obviously he's referring to the fact that Tom Monaghan got a yellow card to me now, he was in the process of tackling Cian Lynch, and his hurley came up and caught Lynch on the face guard, so he rightly got his yellow card. There wasn't intent, as far as I'm concerned. Later on, Kyle Hayes, who was already on a yellow card, he flicked out at Brian Kincannon, and Kincannon had flicked at him first. He caught him straight on the face guard. It should have been a straight red, didn't even get a second yellow. So I think Galway supporters can feel rightly aggrieved at that.
I think they can, especially because he was on a yellow. You know, I mean, I suppose definitely with the letter of the law, it did look a straight red offence as well, but it definitely seemed to merit a yellow card. And I suppose the thing was, we'll presume Sean Stack wasn't cited, that he didn't see it, but that he did talk to him afterwards. So you wonder what they actually kind of discussed in that instance, you know. Now, John Kelly brought up afterwards, I saw his quotes, the context is important here. And that's true, I guess, in the sense of, you know, what it looked like what Kincannon had done first, but it's still, I think it's undisputably a yellow card for that challenge by Hayes. So in that sense, definitely it should have been a dismissal because he had already been on a yellow from the first half.
Yeah, and again, the fallout in terms of the reaction online from Limerick supporters seems to be one where, I don't know, are they trying to generate a siege mentality? What is the situation here? Because all they want to talk about is the Monaghan incident. Why isn't that being covered as well? But like, that was dealt with. Why can't you just accept as a supporter group that, yeah, we should have got a red card there and we were quite fortunate?
Well, there definitely is, I think, a bit of a siege mentality building, you know. I mean, it's this time last year, it was really starting to bubble up between these two counties when Garrod Hegarty got sent off. And I'm trying to think of the chain of events. Someone else had got a red card as well in the game before that.
Yes.
The opening league game. So, you know, this issue of discipline had cropped up. Like, these games are pretty interesting between Limerick and Galway. Something always seems to kind of happen in these league meetings. Like, if you think 2018 was viewed as this big turning point, you know, for Limerick season when they won that league game. I think, was it 2 years ago, Kiley came out with the comments about the standard of refereeing and then walked them back fairly decisively on the Monday afternoon, then said he had a second look. Last year's was obviously dominated by how the scale of Galway's victory in the Gaelic grounds and the Hegarty dismissal. And then, yes, and obviously they've had a couple of really kind of epic All-Ireland semi-finals, which have both been won by Limerick by 3-point margins, you know. So it's developing into a kind of I don't know, it's not a massively heated rivalry. Maybe it's just more, there just always seems to be some major kind of a talking point, or just something kind of substantial seems to come out of it when they clash.
Yeah, and also both are really physical teams, so it makes for incidents like this. You'd imagine that if two teams are sparking off each other throughout a game, ultimately there's going to be a little bit of fire somewhere. But the other thing is that, you know, Kyle Hayes was so good at wing back. He scored 3 points, all from about 90 metres out on the sideline early on in the game, because, of course, it's not like Galway pushed all the way up on him. Not entirely sure that Donal O'Shea is the right man physically to match up with him on that wing anyway. You know, it's going to be tough for a young player like Donal O'Shea to make a huge impact against the size of these kind of Limerick guys who are obviously...
Would he be more an inside forward? I'm just kind of thinking how we would have seen him more. I mean, I know he can play kind of outside the half-forward line between UCD Fitzgibbon or some of the Galway underage sides, but I've kind of always maybe more thought that he's more suited inside to kind of a number 14 or 15 role.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah, it's hard to say for sure without talking to the player themselves. Often they'll tell you what they feel, so I wouldn't know entirely. But, you know, like, Limerick had gone 8 points ahead. It came back all the way to within 2 points. And if that red card had happened, which would have been on, I think, 66 minutes, you know, Hayes went on to win a free a couple of minutes later with another barrel and run. So they had it back within 2. If there was a red card there, you know, maybe they could have turned this around. And I know at the end of the day, it's only a league game, wouldn't make that much of a difference, but it would have been big for Galway confidence.
Yeah, because, like, there is an element maybe they do need to start kind of landing a blow here, you know. I mean, okay, I know they won the league game last year, but if you look at, you know, 2018 final, 2020 semi-final, 2022 semi-final, that's an aggregate, I think of the match right, 7 points defeat across 3 games in total, which just shows you that they're very, very close to Limerick in these championship games without managing to kind of land that kind of knockout blow. So the more kind of wins that they can pick up, the better. Now, obviously, their team has changed a lot. You know, like Joe Canning was reading out last night on Alliance League Sunday, like the list of absentees from last year's All-Ireland semi-final alone, and it did look like maybe more so than Limerick's, I thought. Galway's did look a little bit more kind of experimental and maybe kind of testing guys out. With the caveat, obviously, that they do still have a lot. There was still a few big kind of experienced names kind of in action there, So, like, yeah, like I think it would be good for Galway to maybe kind of they would have liked to try to kind of start winning this, but I mean, I don't think Sheffield's going to dwell on that because I think there was enough problems in the first half performance that rather than pointing at that it was just a red card was kind of the reason for their dismissal. Limerick were far kind of slicker, like you mentioned. Hayes, he hurt them a fair bit at centre forward in last year's All-Ireland semi-final, and now he's kind of back wing back. So it looks like maybe that Kylie's plan for him this year. I suppose with Lynch back fit, I suppose is the thing. In comparison to last year, that he's the option to maybe kind of start at 11 again, and that they can push Hayes back to 7. But one thing I think about Limerick, and I've kind of said this a few times, is kind of chatting to Bernie on the show the last time. It's so built on the 2015 to 2017 under 21 winning teams. So it's a lot of players in that 26 to 28 age bracket. It just seems to me in this year's league, there's a kind of a concerted effort to, they won't all start, but give 5 or 6 lads, a lot who were on the under 20 last year, their chance. With the kind of view, I think, does Kylie think that the team needs to be freshened up a little bit, Like it generally has been a pretty settled 15, give or take. It's kind of 15 out of 18 players for the last, since they came in 2018. And we're making out a minute, but like really excited by Shane O'Brien, having seen him a couple of times. Was at the Clare game a couple of weeks back. And like, you think this time last year, he was preparing for a Crow Cup final with Ardscoil Reach and St. Patrick's Day. I know he's that bit older. I think he's under 19. He was under 19 last year. Said he was on the under 20 team then that got to the other final. But he looks made for it,
Yeah, and Donegal O'Donnell came in and set up one score and got another one. So he also made an impact. A couple of things that stood out to me: no goal chances in the game, unless you're to count Kevin Cooney's speculative effort from about the 21 very late on there in injury time. Also, the depth of the Galway panel. That at half-time, Henry Shefflin felt that he had to bring in Jack Grealish, Conor Whelan and Brian Kincannon. So that kind of suggested that they did need to go back to the old guard to just try and make sure they were competitive. A few comments saying, Sully 180, Kincannon caught Hayes for sure, but he was trying to keep the ball in play. Accidental strike on Hayes' shin. I agree Hayes should have gotten a second yellow, but Mannion should have had a second yellow for hitting Morrissey in the face as P-Well 74. That's a Limerick man. Adrian McGrath, yellow for Kincannon, red for Hayes. Ludicrous to say anything else. The linesman not looking at the incident showed serious lack of experience on his part. The linesman looking away while signalling saved Hayes, says Sully 180. Should have kept his eyes on the two lads and signalling at the same time. So Carlo Halloran, I should say. I'm a Galway man. Hayes should have seen the line. I think Limerick would have won anyway, but it was at least a yellow. So loads of people giving their thoughts on that game, and keep the comments coming in. Delighted to get them in from you. John Kiley called it a solid performance. And I think outside of that purple patch that Galway had midway through the second half where they scored, I think it was 7 points in a row, it probably was Limerick lording it in an awful lot of ways. And makes you wonder that when we come down to the summer and they've got a full-strength team, and obviously Galway will have a more full-strength team as well. Like, do you think, I haven't spoken to you about this recently, do you think that the gap is closing on Limerick, or do you think that they'll pull away again in the summer?
Well, I did think the gap closed last year, I mean, compared to, you think of the way they won the 2021 championship, annihilated Cork in the final, won the semi-final against Waterford pretty convincingly. I was at a lot of their matches last summer, and there was a lot of times you still probably backed them to win, but with 5-10 minutes to go, do you feel this? But a lot of games you're like, this is up for grabs, like Clare in the final, Galway in the semi, Kilkenny. It felt like they got a series of concerted tests, which probably elevates them all the more, their kind of greatness as champions. But I suppose the two things this year have stood out to me. They have that wobble that they had maybe last year in the league seems to have gone. Kylie was pretty interesting. I thought he made a good point about the whole kind of scheduling after the game yesterday. The teams are further on, teams have more work done because the 2021 club season went right up until like county finals in November, December. It went on later. So then that affected teams' 2022 preparations, whereas last year was the first time that everything was done early. So he reckons that teams were able to get a bigger block of work done pre-Christmas and teams have hit the ground running a bit more, which is probably a good point. But also I just think he kind of has everyone back in tow. Injuries seem to have cleared up for the likes of Lynch. Again, these aren't all going to start, but I'm just looking at the names here from yesterday. Kieran Barry, Micheál Houlihan, Shane O'Brien, guys that came on then, Adam English, Donegal O'Donnell. Another guy I've seen a bit, Fergal O'Connor. I think he's been really impressive kind of cornerback, some against Clare, and he was good against Cork as well. So you kind of have 6 or 7 more options there onto a team where you've had no retirements, you know. Like, that'll be the interesting thing. Maybe we're a couple of years away from it, like, but when you really start getting the big, I know besides fairness, Barry Hennessy has stepped away, like Richie McCarthy, Tom Condon, these kind of the experienced squad members, but like the core of the team is really still intact from 2018. It's kind of unusual, really, isn't it? You know, when you think when a team goes on this run, that the core of it stays together, and I suppose it shows how good that underage side is, you know. But look, they're still the pace setters. Like, I know what you thought, but at times yesterday in the first half when I was watching it, when they just stitch the stuff together, and I think when you look at, I know this sounds kind of simplistic, like, but it's just when you see the quality of the way they work the ball out of the defense and the quality of the angled deliveries, and I thought the same in the Clare game actually when I was at it, and you contrast that with Clare seem under pressure coming out in the Gaelic grounds, Galway seem under pressure coming out of the defense yesterday, and suddenly when they're hitting it into their forwards, it's like a low percentage, high ball. I mean, the ball, like I've said, Shane O'Brien is playing well, but I mean, the ball he's getting in these games is just absolutely perfect for him.
Yeah, and that's something that other teams are going to mimic. So, like, I don't know if you've noticed it, but there seems to be an awful lot of players who are getting head hits in matches or going off for blood injuries or whatever. But I think it's because so many teams are filling the middle of the pitch, plus there's such an emphasis on break the tackle, beat your man, and then, you know, create a 2-on-1 and drive forward. I think we're just going to get more and more of that as time goes by. I should just mention the people who did the scoring for Limerick. Kyle Hayes got 3. Tom Morrissey got 8 points, including 3 frees. He was excellent. Cian Lynch with 3. Micheál Hoolan with 4 points, and Shane O'Brien with 1. Peter Casey with a couple, so he's hit the ground running. Conor Cooney got 12 for Galway, including 9 frees. Kevin Cooney 2. A couple other lads got a point, but not enough players really making that impact for them. Tom Monaghan, though, I think is one player that's really stepping up this year. He scored 3 points in this game, and he also assisted for 5 other scoring chances. And he was fouled a number of times. You know, he was a player who was carrying the ball into contact and was getting battered at times. But he does seem to always find his way onto the ball. So I think he's a player that, you know, Shefflin obviously really trusts based on last season and this. So he's kind of stepped up an awful lot.
And the fact that he's maintained that form is the interesting thing. You know, some guys can have that kind of he's been around for a while, and then I think he went off the panel. I think he was on the panel around 2018. I could be wrong now. And then I think he went off for a couple of years, and Crowell had a good kind of a club championship season. He got brought back in. And if you remember last year's All-Ireland semi-final, he was brilliant in it. I think he got 4 points in play. I think I'd have to double check that, but I think he got something like that. But it's the fact that he's maintained that, and that's no easy thing to do, to be kind of finding those pockets of space against Limerick. Cooney is the other one that I do think the couple of games I've seen seems to be showing up well. Kevin Cooney, you know, wondering will he be kind of another kind of a target man for them inside, because I think they are, you know, Whelan aside, there's a lot of players I know. Would you rate them to kind of at a similar level? It's like, who can really kind of step up to be that, you know, kind of a simple metric, like if there's a lot of 7 out of 10s, who's the kind of guy that's going to be the 8 or 9 that's really going to kind of push you over the line?
Yeah, I'm looking for Brian Kincannon to be that player. I mean, a couple of years ago, to me, he was an all-star, but hasn't quite had the same form. Injuries being part of the problem as well. Michael Sweeney on Twitter has a fairly sneery old comment relating to that Kyle Hayes incident. Should have been a free into Limerick. 26 for Galway threw his head viciously at Kyle's hurley and could have broken his wrist. So yeah, that's what we're reduced to now.